I remember the sound more than anything else. Metal twisting, glass shattering, and then silence. They told everyone I died that night. I've replayed it 1,000 times in my head, trying to find the exact moment when my life split into two versions. The one where I was supposed to be buried, and the one where I kept breathing. The rain was heavy that evening. I shouldn't have been driving, I knew that. But I needed to get out of the house. Needed air. Needed distance from everything that had been slowly suffocating me for months. I didn't see the truck until it was too late. Headlights, blinding, too close. Then darkness. When I woke up, I couldn't move. My body felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. There were voices around me, distant, like I was underwater. No pulse. Impact was severe. Time of death. Time of death. That's the moment I understood. Not with my mind, but with something deeper, something colder. They thought I was gone. And for a second, I almost let them believe it. But then I felt it. A breath. Small. Weak. But real. I was alive. I tried to open my eyes to say something, anything. But my body refused. It was like being trapped inside a coffin before they even buried me. Days passed. Or maybe hours. I still do not know. Time didn't feel real anymore. I remember flashes. A ceiling with harsh white lights. A mask over my face. Machines beeping, then not. And then nothing. When I woke up again, everything had changed. I wasn't in a hospital anymore. The room was dark. Quiet. Too quiet. No machines. No voices. Just a faint hum of something electrical and the smell of dust. For a moment, I thought this was it. That I had finally crossed over somewhere else. But then I heard footsteps. Slow. Careful. Someone was there. I forced my eyes open, just enough to see a silhouette near the door. A man, I think. Tall. Still. Watching me. He didn't seem surprised that I was awake. In fact, it felt like he had been waiting. Good, he said softly. You're stronger than they thought. The word sent a chill through me. I tried to speak, but my voice came out broken, barely a whisper. Where am I? He didn't answer immediately, just stepped closer into the dim light. I'll never forget his face, not because I recognized him, but because I didn't. You're safe, he said. For now. Safe. That word didn't feel right either. I tried to sit up, pain shooting through my body like fire. That's when I noticed the bandages. My arms, my chest, wrapped tightly, like someone had tried very hard to keep me alive, but not for the reasons I thought. Why am I here? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, measuring something. Then he said the one thing that changed everything. They buried someone in your place yesterday. My heart stopped, or at least it felt like it did. What? Closed casket, he continued calmly. Severe damage. No one questioned it. No, that didn't make sense. My family believes you're dead. The room started spinning. Dead. Gone. Erased. I wanted the screen to run to break something, but all I could do was lie there staring at him, trying to understand how my entire life had ended without me.
Why?
I whispered. This time he hesitated. And that was the moment I knew the truth wasn't something I was ready to hear. It wasn't an accident, he finally said. The words landed slowly, heavy, permanent. What do you mean? He leaned closer, his voice dropping just enough to feel dangerous. I mean, you weren't supposed to survive. I didn't say anything after that. I couldn't. The words were stuck somewhere between panic and disbelief. My mind trying to reject what he had just told me. Because if it was true, then everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. And worse, someone had decided I shouldn't exist anymore. I stared at him, searching for something human in his face. Some sign that this was a mistake, a misunderstanding, anything. But all I saw was certainty. Calm, controlled certainty. The kind that doesn't come from guessing. It comes from knowing. Who are you? I asked finally, my voice steadier than I felt. And for a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. But then he exhaled slowly and said, someone who pulled you out before they finished the job. That sentence hit harder than the accident itself. Before they finished the job, meaning it wasn't just chance. It wasn't just bad luck. It was planned. My chest tightened, pain spreading through my ribs as I forced myself to sit up a little more, ignoring the burning sensation, because suddenly the physical pain didn't matter anymore, not compared to the realization growing inside me. Who would do this? I asked. But even as I said it, faces started flashing in my mind. Familiar ones, trusted ones. And I hated myself for even thinking it. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he walked to the window and pulled the curtain slightly, just enough for a thin line of gray light to cut through the room. You need to see something, he said. I didn't like the way he said it, like this wasn't just information. This was proof, something that would destroy whatever denial I had left. He helped me stand, my legs weak, barely holding me, every step feeling like I was walking through someone else's body, and led me to the window. Outside it was overcast, cold, quiet, the kind of day that feels wrong, even without knowing why. In the distance, I saw it. Black cars lined up. People dressed in dark clothes were gathered around something I couldn't fully see yet, but I already knew. I felt it before my brain caught up. My breath stopped as he pulled the curtain wider. That's your funeral, he said. Everything inside me collapsed at once, my hands gripping the edge of the wall as my vision blurred. Not from pain this time, but from something deeper. Something that felt like losing myself in real time. I watched them from that distance, like a ghost watching the living. People I knew, people I loved, standing there talking, moving, existing in a world where I no longer belonged. No, I whispered, but the word meant nothing. It didn't change what I was seeing. It didn't undo anything. He stayed silent beside me, letting me take it in, because there was no gentle way to understand something like this. We can get closer, he said after a moment, and I turned to him sharply. Are you insane? They'll see me. He shook his head slightly. No, they won't. Not if we do it right. I hesitated, every instinct telling me to stay hidden, to disappear completely. But something stronger pushed me forward, something raw and uncontrollable. I needed to see, needed wanted to know who was standing at my grave and what they were really feeling. "Take me there," I said. He studied me for a second, like he was making sure I understood what I was asking, then nodded once. "Stay close to me and don't speak." The ride felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life through a screen. Streets I knew passing by like distant memories. Everything familiar and foreign at the same time, until we stopped. I could hear it before I saw it. Quiet voices, soft crying, the low murmur of people pretending to grieve. We moved slowly, staying behind trees, behind shadows, close enough to see but far enough to remain unseen. And then I saw them clearly. My family, my friends, all gathered around a coffin that was supposed to be mine. My mother was crying, or at least it looked like she was, her shoulders shaking slightly. My father standing beside her, stiff, distant, unreadable. And for a moment, just a moment, I felt something break inside me because I wanted to run to them to tell them I was alive, that I was right there, that this was all wrong. But then I heard it. A voice, familiar, too familiar. "This had to happen," it said quietly. And everything inside me went cold. "Perfect. Mergem mai departe. Nivelul crește aici. Asta e partea care ține oamenii lipiți de video." Part 3. I froze the moment I heard that voice, every instinct in my body telling me not to move, not to breathe because I knew that voice. I knew it better than I knew my own thoughts, and the way it sounded now. Calm, controlled, almost relieved. It didn't match the situation at all. I leaned slightly forward, careful not to step out of the shadow, my eyes locking onto him as he stood near the coffin, hand in his coat pockets, head slightly lowered like he was playing a role he had already rehearsed. It was him, the one person I would have trusted with my life without hesitation. And in that moment, something inside me shifted, something irreversible. "Who is that?" the man beside me whispered quietly. But I didn't answer, because saying his name out loud would have made it real, and I wasn't ready for that yet. I focused on his words instead, forcing myself to listen, to understand, even if it destroyed me. "It was only a matter of time," he continued, his voice low enough that most people probably wouldn't notice. But I did. I caught every word like it was cutting into me. Another voice responded, someone standing close to him. "You said it would be clean." Clean. The word echoed in my head like a gunshot. This wasn't grief. This wasn't shock. This was a conversation, a controlled one, like they were discussing a finished job. My stomach twisted, a cold wave running through me as the truth began to form, piece by piece, whether I wanted it or not. "It is clean," he replied, slightly irritated now. No body to question, no evidence, just a tragic accident. My fingers tightened against the rough surface of the wall behind me, my nails digging in as if that could keep me grounded, because the alternative was falling apart completely. No body to question. They didn't just accept my death. They needed it. I turned slightly toward the man next to me, my voice barely audible. "You knew about this." He didn't deny it. Didn't even look surprised. He just kept watching them, his eyes scanning the crowd carefully. "I knew something was wrong," he said quietly, "but not who, not until now." I swallowed hard, my throat dry, my mind racing through memories, conversations, small details I had ignored before, things that suddenly felt different, heavier, suspicious. "Why me?" I asked, more to myself than to him, but answered anyway. "Because you were in the way." The simplicity of that answer hit harder than anything else, because it meant There was no dramatic reason, no grand explanation, just convenience. That was something to remove, not more. Gaze returned to him, to the man standing by my coffin, and that's when he lifted his head slightly, just enough for me to see his face, clearly, and he smiled. Not a big smile, not obvious, just a small one, almost invisible to anyone not looking directly at him, but I saw it, and in that second, every last piece of doubt had disappeared. This was real. He did this. I felt something break inside my chest, not like sadness, not like grief, something colder, sharper, something that replaced everything else instantly. I wasn't the person I was before the accident anymore. I couldn't be. That version of me was already in that coffin. We're leaving, the man beside me said suddenly, his tone more urgent now. But I didn't move. I couldn't take my eyes off the scene, off him, off the life I had just lost. No, I whispered, my voice different now, steadier, darker, not yet. He grabbed my arm slightly, not rough, but firm enough to pull me back into reality. You have to see you. It's over. Over. The word lingered for a moment, and then I nodded slowly, forcing myself to step back, one step at a time, away from the only proof of my own death. As we moved away, the voices faded. The image burned into my mind, every detail, every expression, every word, locked in permanently. When we reached the car, I didn't get in immediately. I just stood there, staring at nothing, trying to understand what I'd become in the span of a few hours. Dead to the world, alive in the shadows, betrayed by the one person I never questioned. What are you going to do? He asked. I took a slow breath, feeling it fill my lungs. Real, undeniable. Proof that I was still here, still existing, still capable of making a choice. And for the first time since the accident, I knew exactly what that choice was. They buried me today, I said quietly. My eyes finally lifting to meet his, so I'm going to let them believe it. He watched me carefully, like he was trying to see how far I would go, how much I had changed. And then he asked. I opened the car door, finally stepping inside, my expression calm, but my mind sharper than it had ever been before. And then, I said, closing the door slowly, I find out everything. The city looked different that night. Or maybe I did. Maybe everything felt sharper because I had nothing left to lose. No identity, no name, no place to return to. Just question and a truth that was starting to take shape in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. We drove in silence for a while. The kind of silence that isn't empty but heavy, filled with everything that doesn't need to be said out loud. And I kept replaying that moment over and over again. The voice, the words, the smile. That small, controlled smile that told me more than any confession ever could. You can't go back, he said eventually, breaking the silence without looking at me, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Not yet. I let out a quiet breath, not because I disagreed, but because hearing it confirmed something final, something irreversible. I know, I replied, my voice steady, almost detached, like I was already someone else speaking. They'll be watching, he added, and that made me turn my head slightly. Who? I asked, even though part of me already knew the answer. The same people who made sure you disappeared, he said. Simple, direct, no hesitation. My fingers tightened slightly against my leg, my mind immediately shifting from shock to calculation, from reaction to strategy. Then we make sure they keep thinking I'm gone, I said. He glanced at me briefly, just enough to register the change in my tone. You're adapting fast. I didn't respond to that. because adapting wasn't a choice, it was survival. We stopped in front of an old building, nothing remarkable from the outside, just another forgotten place in a city full of them. But the moment I stepped inside, I understood why we were there. It was safe, hidden, temporary. We'll stay here for now, he said, unlocking a door and stepping aside to let me in. No windows facing the street, no direct access. No one comes here unless I bring them. I walked in, slowly, scanning everything automatically, noticing details I would have ignored before. Exits, corners, anything that could matter later. And that's when it hit me again. I wasn't thinking like myself anymore. I was thinking like someone who expected danger at any moment. Why are you helping me? I asked suddenly, turning to face him, because this question had been building since the moment I woke up. He paused for a second and stepped inside, closing the door behind him carefully, because I've seen this before, he said. The answer didn't satisfy me, not fully, but it was enough for now, because there were bigger things to focus on. I need everything you know, I said, stepping closer, my voice low but firm. Names, connection, anything. He studied me again, longer this time, like he was deciding whether I was ready for what came next. And then he nodded slowly. If you're right about who you heard today, he began, then this isn't just personal. This is bigger than you think. A cold feeling settled in my chest, not fear. Not exactly. More like anticipation mixed with something darker. Start talking, I said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small folder, placing it on the table between us. This is where it begins. I stared at it for a moment, knowing that once I opened it, there would be no going back. No pretending this was just an accident or a misunderstanding. This was the point where everything would become real. Slowly, I reached out and opened it. Photos, documents, names. My eyes moved quickly, trying to process everything at once, until one name made me stop completely. I felt my breath catch, my vision narrowing as the letters seemed to burn into the page. No, I whispered, barely aware that I had spoken out loud. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to, because he knew exactly what I was looking at. You see it now, he said, quietly. I looked up at him, my expression no longer confused, no longer uncertain, just focused, sharp, and dangerous. But this isn't just betrayal, I said slowly, my voice controlled in a way that surprised even me. This is planned. He nodded once. From the beginning, the room felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier, like everything was closing in around a single point of truth. I closed the folder carefully, not because I was done, but because I had seen enough for now, enough to understand one thing clearly. This wasn't over. It hadn't even started yet. I leaned back slightly, my mind already moving, connecting pieces, building something new from everything that had just been destroyed. They think I'm dead, I said, almost to myself. He watched me closely, waiting. I lifted my eyes slowly, meeting his gaze with something that hadn't been there before. Good, I added. And for the first time since the accident, I smiled. That night, I didn't sleep. Not even for a second. My body was exhausted. Every muscle still aching from the accident. But my mind refused to shut down. It kept moving, building, analyzing, replaying every detail I'd seen and heard, turning it into something else, something usable, something dangerous. I sat at the table with the folder open in front of me. The dim light casting shadows over the photos and documents. And the longer I looked, the clearer everything became. Not all at once, not in a dramatic realization, but slowly, piece by piece, like a puzzle that had been there all along, and I had just never noticed it. Names connected to transactions, transactions connected to locations, locations tied to people I recognized. And at the center of it, him. Not directly, not obvious enough to raise suspicion, but present in a way that only someone careful would notice. Someone who knew how to stay clean while everything around him got dirty. He is not working alone, I said quietly, more as a conclusion than a question. No, he replied from across the room, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, watching me without interrupting. And the people he's connected to don't make mistakes. I let that sink in for a moment, because if that was true, then me being alive wasn't just unexpected. It was a problem, a loose end that needed to be fixed. Then they'll come, I said. He nodded once. Eventually wasn't good enough for me. Eventually meant waiting, and waiting meant losing control, and I'd already lost enough. I closed the folder slowly, my fingers rested on top of it as my thoughts shifted from understanding to action. We don't wait, I said. He raised an eyebrow slightly, not surprised, just measuring. You're not ready, he said calmly. I looked up at him, holding his gaze without hesitation. I don't need to be ready. I just need to move first. A brief silence filled the room, heavy but not tense, more like a test. And then he exhaled quietly, pushing himself off the wall. All right, he said, stepping closer. Then we do this carefully. Carefully. I almost smiled at the word, because careful was what got me here in the first place. Trusting, not questioning, not seeing what was right in front of me. No, I said, my voice low but firm. We do this smart. That got a different reaction, a slight shift in his expression, and something closer to approval than concern. What's your plan? He asked. I stood up slowly, ignoring the lingering pain, letting it ground me instead of weaken me. Because pain meant I was still here, still capable of finishing what someone else had started. They think I'm gone, I said, stepping toward the window, looking out into the empty street below, which means they're relaxed, not careless, but less alert than they were before. He didn't interrupt, just listened. We use that, I continued, turning back to him. We don't go after them directly, not yet. We watch, we listen, we find where they feel safest. And then he asked. I held his gaze for a second longer, letting the answer settle before I said it. We break it. The words felt right, not emotional, not impulsive, just clear, focused, inevitable. He nodded slowly, like he had been waiting for that exact response. There's one place, he said after a moment, a location that shows up more than the others, not obvious, but consistent. My attention sharpened immediately. Where? He hesitated just enough to make it count, then said, a private facility outside the city. Officially, it doesn't exist. Of course it didn't. Nothing about this was supposed to exist. That's where we start, I said. He studied me again, longer this time, searching for hesitation, doubt, anything that might slow me down. But there was nothing left to find. That version of me was gone. If we go there, he said carefully, there's no guarantee we walk out. I stepped closer, stopping just in front of him, my voice steady, controlled, final. I already died once, I said quietly. I'm not afraid of it happening again. For a moment, neither of us moved, the air between us heavy with everything that was about to happen, everything that couldn't be undone once it started. Then he gave a small nod, almost imperceptible. "Then we go tonight," he said. And just like that, it began. The drive felt longer than it actually was, not because of distance, but because of what waited at the end of it. Every second stretching, tightening, building something inside me that wasn't fear anymore. It was focus, sharp and controlled, like everything unnecessary had been stripped away and only purpose remained. The city lights disappeared behind us slowly, replaced by empty roads, industrial shadows, and long stretches of darkness that felt too quiet to be natural. "This is where it starts," he said as we turned off the main road, the car headlights cutting through a narrow path, barely visible from the outside, like it was designed not to be found unless you already knew it was there. I leaned slightly forward, my eyes scanning everything automatically. Fences, cameras, patterns, anything that could tell me how this place functioned, how it protected itself. "There," he added quietly, nodding toward the distance. At first I didn't see it, just darkness and trees. But then it appeared, subtle, almost hidden, a structure set back far enough to avoid attention, surrounded by fencing that didn't look aggressive, but was placed with precision, controlled entry points, limited exposure, no unnecessary movement. It wasn't abandoned, it was protected. "No visible guards," I said. "That doesn't mean anything," he replied. He was right. Places like this didn't rely on what you could see. They relied on what you couldn't. We stopped far enough away to remain unnoticed, the engine going silent as the world around us seemed to close in. For a moment, neither of us moved. "Once we're in, we don't split," he said, his tone calm but firm. "And if something feels wrong, we leave." I didn't respond immediately, my eyes still fixed on the building, because something about it felt off. Not in an obvious way, but in the kind of way you only notice when you've already learned to look deeper. "No," I said finally, my voice low. He turned his head slightly. "No." I shifted my gaze toward him, steady, certain. If something feels wrong, that means we're exactly where we need to be. He held my gaze for a second, then gave a small, almost reluctant nod. "Stay close," he said. We moved quickly but carefully, keeping to the shadows, every step deliberate, every movement controlled, the ground beneath us uneven, quiet enough to avoid attention if we didn't make mistakes. As we reached the outer fence, I noticed it immediately. Not just a barrier, but a system, reinforced at key points, monitored without being obvious, designed to catch people who assumed it was simple. "Do not here," I whispered, moving slightly to the left, my fingers brushing lightly against the metal as I followed the line until I found it. The subtle difference, the place where security relied on predictability, and predictability could be broken. He watched me, not interfering, just observing. And after a few seconds I heard it, a soft click. "You've done this before," he said quietly. I didn't look back at him. "No," I replied, pushing the fence open just enough for us to slip through. "I've just learned fast." Inside, the air felt different, colder, heavier, like the place itself carried something it didn't want to reveal. We moved closer to the building, staying low, staying silent, until we reached the side entrance. A door that looked ordinary, but wasn't. Reinforced, controlled, secured from the inside. I paused, listening. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just silence. Too perfect. "This is wrong," he whispered. And for the first time since we arrived, I agreed. Not because I was afraid, but because I understood something else now. This place wasn't just hidden. It was waiting. Before I could say anything, a faint sound broke through the silence. Not loud, not sudden, just enough to be noticed. A click. My body reacted before my mind did, turning slightly, my eyes scanning the darkness behind us. Nothing. But it was there. Something had changed. We're not alone, he said quietly. I felt it too. That shift in the air, that subtle pressure that only exists when someone is watching you, calculating, deciding. My pulse slowed instead of rising, my breathing steady, controlled, because panic was useless now. Good, I said under my breath. That saves us time. He didn't respond, but I could feel his attention sharpen instantly. Another sound, closer this time. A step, then a voice. Calm, familiar, and completely unexpected. I was wondering when you'd show up. Everything inside me went still. I knew that voice. I didn't need to turn around to confirm it, but I did anyway. Slowly, deliberately. And there he was, standing just outside the shadows, exactly where he wanted to be seen, watching me, waiting, like this had been planned from the beginning. And in that moment, I realized something even worse than betrayal. He wasn't surprised I was alive. He was expecting me. For a second, everything went completely silent inside my head. Not because I didn't understand what I was seeing, but because I understood it too well. And my brain needed that one moment to accept something it had been trying to avoid since the beginning. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't coincidence. This was planned, including me being here, standing in front of him alive. I stared at him without blinking, studying every detail. The way he stood, relaxed, controlled, like he wasn't facing someone who had just discovered his betrayal, but someone he had been expecting all along. You're not surprised, I said quietly, my voice steady, almost too steady. He tilted his head slightly, a faint smile touching the corner of his lips, the same one I saw at the funeral. Subtle, almost invisible, but impossible to ignore once you noticed it. Should I be? He replied calmly. The question wasn't defensive, it wasn't nervous, it was genuine, like he was testing how much I knew, how far I had already gone. I took a slow step forward, ignoring the tension building around us, ignoring the fact that we were standing in a place designed to erase people without leaving a trace. You buried me, I said. He didn't deny it, didn't even hesitate. Yes, one word, simple, final, no emotion, no explanation. And somehow, that was worse than any excuse he could have given. I felt something tighten in my chest, not pain, not anymore, just pressure. Contained, controlled, waiting. Why? I asked. He looked at me for a moment, really looked this time like he was deciding how much truth I deserved, or maybe how much I could handle. Because you were getting too close, he said. The answer landed exactly where it needed to, confirming everything and opening even more questions at the same time. To what? I pushed. He smiled again, slightly wider this time, not out of amusement, but out of something colder, something calculated. You still don't see the full picture, he said. That irritated me more than anything else. Not the betrayal, not the fact that he tried to kill me, but the idea that I was still behind, still catching up in a game I didn't even know I was playing. Then explain it, I said. My voice sharper now, stepping closer again, closing the distance between us without hesitation. The man beside me shifted slightly, ready, alert, but didn't interfere. He knew this wasn't the moment to step in. All right, he said slowly, as if granting something rather than revealing it, but you're not gonna like it. I let out a quiet breath, my eyes locked on his, unshaken. I don't think I've liked anything so far. That seemed to amuse him just slightly. Fair enough, he said. Then his expression changed, not dramatically, but enough to matter, enough to signal that whatever came next wasn't part of the surface anymore. You weren't supposed to find out about the transfers, he continued, his voice calm, measured. The accounts, the locations, the movement of assets, all of it was meant to stay invisible. My mind immediately connected the dots, the folder, the names, the facility we were standing in front of. This place, I said quietly. He nodded once. One of many. Many. The word hit harder than anything else because it meant this wasn't a single operation. It wasn't isolated. It was a system, structured, controlled, far bigger than I had imagined. And you're a part of it, I said. Not a question, a fact. He didn't deny that either. I built most of it, he replied. That was the moment everything shifted again. Not just betrayal, not just survival, but scale, power, intention. I felt the ground beneath me become something unstable, not physically, but mentally, because the person I thought I knew didn't just lie to me. He was something else entirely. So, killing me was just business? I asked. He held my gaze without flinching. Necessary, he corrected. Necessary. The word echoed in my head. Cold, precise, devoid of anything human. For a moment, I said nothing. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I needed to choose the right words, the right move, the right moment. Then I took another step forward, close enough now that there was no distance left between us, no space for anything unspoken. You made one mistake, I said quietly. His eyes narrowed just slightly, the first real reaction I'd seen from him. Did I? He asked. And for the first time since this began, I let a small smile appear. I didn't die. Silence. Heavy, loaded, final. And in that silence, something shifted. Not in me. In him, just enough to know. The game had changed.